You're listening to the NAESP Principal Podcast. My name is Ned Colbert. I'm the Communications Coordinator at NAESP, and I'm here today with Chris Jackson, Principal of Hollinger K-8 School in Tucson, Arizona, and NAESP State Representative for Arizona, and soon-to-be Zone 9 Director, and Annette Sanchez, Principal of Hampton-Moreno-Dugat Early Childhood Center in Beeville, Texas, and NAESP State Representative for Texas. And we're just here today to talk about the specific needs of Latino students and administrators, and just hopefully have a very productive discussion. So first off, I'm just going to start by asking, what unique challenges and opportunities do you see for Latino students in schools today? And let's start with Annette.
Right now, I believe the Latino students, they often face, language barriers, culture misunderstandings, and systematic inequities, such as lower access to resources and higher rates of discipline compared to their peers. So a lot of this, is a lack of culturally relevant curriculum and role models. And I really feel that we need to target these challenges. As far as opportunities, there are several room for opportunities. Right now, even this podcast is a huge opportunity for voice, for myself, for Christopher, and for our students that we represent it and target.
So anything to add to that, Christopher?
Yeah, I would certainly agree with all of that. In fact, everything she just said was probably foundationally the answer to that question. In addition to that, I would add getting students to think of themselves as the most impactful person to drive their learning and help them understand and leverage the power they have within themselves to be successful. And I know we're going to talk about some of the ways to get them to do that here shortly, but I really think involving the student, especially the older they become, as the advocate for themselves, and also helping create the self-efficacy in them towards those challenges that we speak about.
Great. And just to follow up on that, why do you think students need to feel represented in school, faculty, curriculum? So why is that so important in your mind?
So it's all about the students, right? And, I had this conversation with my leadership team at my school a couple of weeks ago. We talk about stakeholder input. And, obviously, administration runs a school, and we, of course, need teacher input, and there's staff input, and interventionists, and family involvement. And too often in schools, I think we forget involving the students. We have things like student council, but we need to go deeper than that, further than that, broader than that, and on the daily norm with procedures and routines. What do we do at the beginning of a lesson, throughout the lesson, at the end of a lesson? I've visited schools where we have, where there's been, and we want to do it at my school, like morning data time, where students are looking at a portfolio and they're tracking goals using data and really diving in and owning their learning day to day. So when we talk about multiple stakeholder groups, we need to start with the students, not end with the students.
Right. And anything to add to that, Annette?
Well, they need to have that, obviously that sense of belonging, the confidence and cultural pride. But on top of that, students need to be represented even in elementary. They do need to have a sense of pride, like Christopher said. But if you look at statistics, in college, Latino students are the most underrepresented. And they also have the lowest graduation rate with a bachelor's of any other race and ethnicity. And so I just believe that targeting them to make sure that they have good role models, faculty representation, and then representation in the curriculum also, because that also validates everyone's culture, cultural identity. And, diversity really is, it's beauty, and there's strength in diversity.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we're talking a bit about students, but just to pivot to administrators, particularly, what kind of supports do you think Latino school leaders need, and what does it look like? How do you know that you're headed in the right direction?
Well, I believe we're heading in the right direction when we have representation, in the schools. We need to make sure that we have targeted recruitment efforts, leadership training programs that address cultural competencies. Even if you are not a Latino principal and you represent Latino students, just having that support from experienced leaders and opportunities for hands-on experiences in educational leadership role, I think will propel us forward and help us reach all our students, whether we are Latino or not, but that we have that understanding of what we need to do to build capacity within our staff and our students.
I agree with that. I would also say the supports that school leaders need for Latino students and schools that are predominantly Latino and also in Latino neighborhoods is making sure that those principals receive district level support from or organizational support from something like NAESP to be placed somewhere or at least provided with a substantial opportunity to truly know and understand their school and the community that they're in. I think oftentimes, almost always, people come in well-intentioned with ideas for communities or schools, but those ideas may not be the exact same or shared authentically with the people that are a part of that community. So getting administrators that have experience with that community in a capacity outside of leadership is important. It could be they grew up in the community. It could be they attended the school or the district. Or they taught at the school for a number of years, but people that authentically represent and understand the community, I think is very important because as leaders, we can't go into situations overlaying our ideas upon people and students and families that may have other needs in terms of priorities. So we need people that truly understand the community, and we need supports for those principals to help guide them and inform them on that as well.
Great. Yeah, and actually it brings up a good point because I was going to talk about how obviously the makeup of the student population has changed dramatically over the past few decades. Just for a long time it has been changing, but that hasn't always necessarily been reflected in the workforce. So for instance, in 1988, about 9% of students were Hispanic, but by 2016, that figure was 23%. But if you look at the comparison to Hispanic principals, that grew from 3% to just 8%. So I'm curious if you think that there are particular barriers or disincentives that drive that sort of imbalance, and if so, what are they? And I'm going to start with Annette.
I believe that there are barriers that include systematic biases in hiring practices, limited access to leadership development, and just the understanding of where we need to recruit. A lot of school districts have various structures in place. We need to hire the best, obviously, for our students, but we also need to look at people's background and where they come from and just give them that opportunity to see where they stand on diversity and equity for our students, to try to understand culture and go forth with hiring people of diverse backgrounds for our students to have those role models that they so desperately need.
I agree. I would also say that, people like myself and my colleague that's sitting here with me, we need to be able to, and I feel that we do, recognize those future leaders as well, because going back to my original comment about students having efficacy and thinking of themselves as leaders, I think some of our adult leaders on campus need to be encouraged to do that. And people from our community, former teachers that are from our community that are working at the school or within the school district, we need to encourage them and show them how they can expand their influence exponentially to impact the community when we see that. Because that's how I became a principal. I was reluctant and someone showed me the way. And I know many other principals are similar in their journey towards being a leader. So I think paying it forward with future leaders and recognizing that and bringing them to the forefront, whether that's on committees, whether that's on leadership teams within the school, making sure that we get those people that do look like and represent and were our students many years ago, get them into leadership to continue to show that path for our kids that they could do it also.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I guess that leads me also into my next question about how we prepare the next generation of Latino school leaders. So just building on that, I can hear from Annette.
I think we need to make sure that we're looking at work conditions, resources, and then we have high accountability pressure and turnover due to that. So what we need to do is make sure that we're being a voice for our school. I've seen all the research that the principalship, although it's not the easiest, it is the most rewarding and one of the happiest jobs. If you look, it's one of the happiest jobs to have. And I think us in the field make sure that we're voicing that, because a lot of times we look at the challenges that we face, and we don't look at that opportunity that it gives us for student impact. So I think we need to make sure that we grow leaders, and leaders, like Chris was saying, bring in those people. I had a principal encourage me when I was teaching, and she brought me to my first principals conference, in my state, and then to a national conference. And my world has just changed, and it's helped me become that leader that looks at, the whole and not just bits and pieces. So I think that's important, to make sure that the people who are working now in the school are making sure that they're voicing the greatness of our careers and bringing in those diverse leaders within their staff to grow leaders.
Thanks. I know that we had mentioned earlier about looking for support from professional organizations such as NAESP, and I know that recently NAESP has started a Latino Plus network. So I was wondering if you guys could maybe talk a little bit about that, who it's for, what its purpose is, what your experience has been so far.
I am part of that Latino Plus program, and I think its purpose is basically to provide a platform for networking, professional development, advocacy, and then sharing resources to address the unique needs and challenges faced by Latino educators and the students that they house. So it's not only, you hear a Latino network and you think Latino principals, but it is for everyone who wants to learn more and know more about servicing our Latino students. Just being in that group, I was able just to gain a lot of knowledge for myself and take that back to my staff of how principals from around our nation are dealing with working with Latino students and raising them up. A lot of times, I guess it's the old school way, and I don't want to say the old school way, but looking at kids and saying, okay, well, they need, clothes, or they're having language barriers, or they're having such a hard time. Let us go and look at those kids and say, okay, well, we're getting you everything you need. And then we need to get you prepared, because there are no excuses, and we need to raise you up. And then within those kids, grow future educators and future principals.
I am also a part of that network, which has been a tremendous opportunity. We're still, I think, in its infancy, but we have accomplished a lot because of the leaders that are taking place in it. I really feel like it has been beneficial to me because it's about the kids and it's about the leaders that help the kids. It's not, a group just to have a label on it. I think oftentimes when we say, this group is the Latino Plus network, there's a little bit of taboo about, well, who should be a part of that? Who shouldn't be a part of that? But really it's for kids, right? That's what it all comes down to in education. So if you serve kids, if you've got communities, if you've got background in your own personal life, all of those things can weave a tapestry for the educators that are a part of it to get better from each other. And then we're able to go out and then help the schools and the communities and the students and the staff that we serve.
Great, thanks. Yeah. And just to build on that, is there anything in particular, what's one thing that you found to be most insightful from your experience with the network so far? So something that you were either surprised to learn or you found very helpful And I guess maybe I can start with Annette.
Basically, I think just the targeted support for leaders that we haven't had previously. And then just having a safe space to say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. How can I better, help students? And then just the advocating for systematic change to enhance equity and opportunities within our schools and that of our neighbors.
I also agree with that. But I also, in addition to that, have really enjoyed hearing similar stories, similar questions, similar triumphs from people from across the country. And while we all work with Latino students, there are things that are transcending each of our schools. Each of our schools are still different. Each of our schools are still in different regions of the country with different demographics. In addition to being Latino or Latina. So I think that has really been refreshing and encouraging because I get to learn by being a part of it. And then if I'm learning, it means my staff is going to be better. It means my students are going to be better. So that's really been a tremendous opportunity for me personally.
Great. Thanks. Very, very insightful. And is there anything else that you guys want to add before we go today? Any parting words? Something you'd like to share with the listeners or peers?
I think the biggest thing is get plugged into the organization, get plugged in to networks, and join us, the Latino Plus group, because we're more than willing to help and we're just a phone call away.
Yeah, and I would say definitely get involved, but I think a lot of times there's trepidation, especially with newer principals and leaders, thinking maybe they're not worthy or they have a little bit of an imposter syndrome going on, and that's just not the case. You don't have to have all the answers as a school leader. You just have to be willing to work to find them and find the people around you to help you with that. And so joining the Latino Plus Network, NAESP in general, it's going to help you be a stronger leader. And no one expects one person to have all the answers, but getting in there and asking the questions and getting involved and learning, I like to say through osmosis, with others that are very, very smart. And I always love to say, I never want to be the smartest person in the room or I'm in the wrong room. And I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the room when I'm in with NAESP or with this Latina network. So it's really great. And I encourage people to join and get involved with it so that they can grow their confidence, but also grow their competence in being a school leader.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today, Chris and Annette. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
you both.
Thank you so much.